Hello, everybody. Welcome to our, I'm not sure what the number of all hands we've had, but welcome to the March 2020 All Hands for Tech for Campaigns. I'm Greg Dale, TFC's Campaign Relations Director, and this is Michael Herscher, our Head of Operations. So today, we have a bunch of cool stuff on the agenda. Number one, of course, is a 2020 update. It's been a slow week for politics, so I will help to catch you up on what's going on, of course. Two different ways that folks like yourself and people that you know can get involved. Then we'll go through the political ads report that we just released last week and talk about our technology infrastructure fund, and then open it up for Q&A. So first on 2020 update front, we are busy here at HQ and throughout the country with all of your contributions. So frequent attendees to our all hands have probably seen this map a bunch of times. It's the sort of holistic map of all the different places we are looking and examining the possibilities that TFC can do work and investments this cycle. So it's really awesome to report that we are well on our way towards activating our network and our operations in a number of these places. So projects are flowing quickly. Texas, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina, Missouri now, soon Alaska even. And we're continuing to talk to other states as they refine their plans for this upcoming year to find all the different ways that TFC, the organization, and our volunteers can assist in flipping some seats, defending Democratic seats, and in some places, breaking or defending against a GOP supermajority, which is what you can find in some of the reddest states. So we are expecting 100+ campaigns this year and 300 individual campaign projects, websites, emails, ads, data science, software. We are already at 22 caucus and campaign partners for this cycle to date and 27 projects. So things are coming at a rapid clip, but we have really ambitious goals, and we'll be certainly working hard here at HQ to make it all happen and give everybody an opportunity to work on a campaign that wants one, and give all the campaigns access to the things that they need to be competitive. So it's nice to see that the faces on the right here on this slide really do reflect the diversity geographically and background-wise and personal background of a number of our candidates from, again, Texas, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, and Michigan. So in order to do all this work, we are always looking for people who have the right skills that we can leverage for our campaigns, and to talk about how we're going to recruit all those folks and what we are looking for in case you know somebody or work with somebody who might be a good fit. I'm going to hand it over to Michael.
Awesome. So this is the time of year when a lot of folks are looking around and recognizing that campaign season is upon us, and it's our chance to make an outsized difference. So we wanted to just dive into a little bit of how to get involved with TFC and how to know who in your network would be a good fit to make a difference as well. So for folks who have been around for a while, this is probably old hat, but we know that many of you are just joining up and getting involved. So there are three main ways to get placed and matched with the right Tech for Campaigns project for you. The first of those, and honestly, this is the most important, is our weekly newsletter that goes out on every Wednesday morning and always includes all of the latest projects. So there were three great projects covering a couple states that we're in this week, and that is your guaranteed way to know what is the latest and greatest and how to get involved. In addition to that, there are a couple of other methods that might work for a given project. If you've been an existing volunteer and have already matched with a project, you can just keep an eye on our new projects channel in the TFC Slack and get early heads up about some of our projects that are best fit for prior volunteers. And then if you're a particularly good match for a given project, you also might get an email directly from us suggesting that you apply, and maybe that's because of your skill set or geographical affinity with a candidate. But of all of those, the one I would really refer everybody back to is make sure that you're watching for that weekly newsletter on Wednesday mornings, and make sure that you have whitelisted techforcampaigns.org so that you are actually seeing those opportunities to volunteer and they're not getting shunted off into an inbox that you check once a month. With that in mind, don't wait to get involved this year. So this year we're planning on helping campaigns with a whole bunch of different types of projects, but the big four that we're going to do the most of are helping build websites, helping campaigns raise money over email, helping run digital advertising, and helping with texting for get out the vote. And all four of those types of projects are fundamental to online campaigning. They are all absolutely critical for the campaigns who are receiving them. And you'll see that we're already in the core of the season for helping out with two of those types of projects. We are already right in the middle of website season, and it is also time to really help candidates begin email fundraising as well. And the key thing for both of those types of projects is the earlier we help candidates with those, the more effective they are. It takes time to raise money. It takes time to get good web traffic. So if you are looking around and want to get involved this cycle, I really encourage you to do it now. Don't wait for the summer, because depending on your skill set, that might just be too late to have the greatest bang for your buck. The other thing that you can do to help flip states this year is telling friends about Tech for Campaigns. We have a fantastic network of almost 12,000 volunteers, but we have some key roles where we know that we're going to need more help and more talented people this year to make a difference. So if you think about the best UX designers, best graphic designers, performance marketers, and copywriters who you know, referring those folks to Tech for Campaigns and sending them a note or sending out a tweet about that is an incredibly effective way to flip states. And absolutely feel free to take credit for the impact of every person who you refer, because that is real, and we will support you in that. And then last but not least, if you are looking for a way to go truly above and beyond and get all the way involved in the cycle, Tech for Campaigns is actively hiring right now for two different roles. We're looking for state directors who will come in and oversee all of the Tech for Campaigns involvement in a state. So that will be a lot of overseeing projects, enabling volunteer teams, and being a point of contact for our caucus partners. So we are looking for great folks for that role right now. We're also looking for somebody to join the team as a full stack engineer. And if you have a technical background and you are looking for a way to put those skills to a purposeful and political use, I really encourage you to check that out as well. So between getting involved early and referring folks, and if you are interested yourself, looking at making it a full-time endeavor, lots of ways to get involved, and I really encourage everybody to do those now. That's great.
Cool. So one big milestone that we had this last week was the release of our 2019 Political Digital Advertising Report. So that comes on building on the 2018 Political Digital Advertising Report that we released in March of last year, and also our 2018 Texting Report. And the thing these reports do is they help give insight and sunlight and clarity to these communication methods in these media areas that are frequently talked about, but sort of less frequently holistically analyzed. And so that's been a really important thing that TFC can do for the broader democratic progressive technology community, the media in general, and just folks who care about civic discourse. So the report is the production of a whole lot of different expertise, a whole lot of different people. From the political side, advertising side, data science, there's really just so many different folks that contributed. And we have Brett, who is one of the data scientists who worked on the project, here with us to help walk through some of the results in a second. So say hi, Brett.
Hey, everyone.
Thanks for joining. So yeah, he was one of just a lot of people that contributed in different ways. The sort of two main aspects of the report are looking at what's going on at the macro level, which is really this year about the presidential race, And then the second part is about looking at the work and the learnings that we've done from TFC's own work running digital advertising programs for different campaigns at the state level. So some of the key things that we've learned at the presidential level was that when we took a snapshot of the Facebook ad archive data, which is released publicly with all political candidates, when we looked at how all the presidential candidates through January or through mid-January of this year from when they started their campaigns and compared them to Trump, one of the things we saw is that Trump is putting not just dollars behind their campaign's effort, but also really trying to push the envelope on the platform. And those of you who are D2C marketers, performance marketers, will recognize the sort of test and iterate methodology and approach to things. And so one way we can measure this through the limited public data that's available is that Facebook lets you see each individual ad that was created on the platform. And Trump's campaign had created 25% more of these individual ads than all the Democratic field at that point combined. That means that it's not a one-to-one relationship or anything, but it's a signifier of the sophistication and the way that they're pushing the platform, and it was sort of a really interesting way to sort of look at how the context shaped up at that point. And the other thing to note about how Trump does their ads is that you really saw the difference between the approach and the sort of advantage that they have by focusing on the general election. So Bernie, Pete, Amy, Warren, Biden, they all ran a significant amount of their ads, those individual ads were focused on asking for money. And it's sort of for understandable reasons. They're in a very competitive primary, they have a lot of expenses, and they had the DNC debate requirements pushing the number of individual donors that were required. Of course, Mike Bloomberg didn't really have that need. Trump asks for money quite actively, but the way they do it is really quite different than how the Democrats do it. So Trump is really focused, instead of on fundraising directly right in the ad, on getting somebody's contact information, getting their phone number, getting their email, registering some information about their issue preferences, so that can be plugged into the voter database, used for refining who they're targeting, and also provide a private and perpetual communications channel for the Trump campaign to communicate with their supporters through the rest of the cycle. So it really points to sort of a long-term mentality that they're able to take, and an advantage that they have structurally in the race. So on sort of pivoting gears a little bit, one of the things that we found last year, and it sort of echoes why that test and iterate thing that Trump does is so important, is that we found that the effects on ad performance, on Facebook and Google ad performance, were much wider when we looked at the different creative and messaging choices. So creative messaging choices means what issue are you talking about? How do you talk about it? Is it in a video, still image, a selfie, a negative ad, a positive ad? Just everything related to how, everything related to the visual impact of a phone as someone's scrolling through the news feed or watching something on YouTube. And on targeting, it's, are they using a voter list? Are they targeting with political interests? Are they targeting their employer? Just sort of the things that, the different platform choices that you can make. And it's not to say that targeting is not important. It's obviously important. If the person that you're trying to persuade to vote for you does not see your ad, that it's not a very good ad. But people focus a lot on micro-targeting. Cambridge Analytica, Trump campaign, they're doing all this crazy stuff. But it's really important to remember, especially as practitioners here at TFC, that creative and messaging are super, super, super important, and people need to treat it in the effective way alongside doing the right things on targeting. And that's something that we've seen in a lot of these sort of ad platform changes, policy edicts that have come out in the past year. They're all focused around targeting, but creative still is kind of the the thing that people need to focus on and, you know, put their investments into. So it's not just that creative is important, it's also that people online get very bored seeing the same message over and over again, and time plays a really significant factor in how ads perform. So Brett's going to walk through an analysis he did about the effects of time on ad performance.
Thanks. Yeah, so we wanted to answer the question of how long should a campaign keep its ad live? Should it show one ad for 7 days or keep that same ad up for 3 weeks? So we went about that by doing a causal inference analysis where we can identify the impact of the age of the ad on the cost per click. So what you're seeing here on this plot is on the x-axis, we have the days after ad launch. This is just the age of the ad. The y-axis, we have the median cost per click. And this data comes from the Virginia 2019 campaigns that Tech for Campaigns helped. So what you can see here is that as the ad ages, the cost per click tends to increase. In fact, we have a 48% increase in just the first 3 weeks. So this seems to be a pretty striking trend, but we wanted to make sure that this trend holds when we control for other variables. So what we did was control for platform, the time, the closeness to the election, the candidates, and the ad objective, and we see that this trend still holds. Therefore, Tech for Campaigns is recommending that to have the most cost-efficient ads, a campaign should refresh their content regularly and show, instead of showing one ad and keeping it for 3 weeks, showing, for example, 3 ads that are each 7 days long and refreshing that content regularly to have the lowest cost per click. Cool,
thanks, Brett. Yeah, that's a really important point. And it's something that political campaigns, which are never really, you know, they're always kind of short on resources and time. A piece of work like this really helps illustrate the reason for them to invest in new messaging and the different ways that digital advertising can be best deployed versus a medium like television or direct mail, which many campaigns are much more familiar with. So yeah, those are a couple insights. Check out the report. It's at techforcampaigns.org. Up and across the top on the banner. And yeah, it's those 2 sections, both the macro sort of overall moves, and then keeping an eye on some of the best practices and trends that we've learned from our day-to-day work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Tech Infrastructure Fund next. And what this is that volunteer work is obviously a huge part of what we do, but we also have a full arm of product and engineering folks who are on staff here building tools to help serve democratic campaigns. And a core motivation of why Tech for Campaigns exists is to be a permanent vehicle to build these tools inside of. And that means that things like helping campaigns fundraise, helping them manage their field activity, helping them or monitor their digital advertising competitors, our technology efforts really help all those things happen, and they can't happen overnight. So the Iowa caucuses were a really good example of the sort of downfall and detriment of when you have to build a piece of software really quickly and in a tight budget and don't have proper time to test it. And the outcome obviously was not what folks were looking for, but if you were to zoom out and say, building a sort of relatively complex piece of software within a couple of months time horizon and no time to test in a really wild environment, yeah, that's a really tough setup. So TFC spends a lot of time trying to give us a long-term view, give us runway to invest in these tools, and our Technology Infrastructure Fund helps us do that. It helps us fund our product engineering efforts. Alex, Aki, Ping, and the next role that we'll be hiring. So this is our plea. We know you give your time, but if you don't mind giving a couple dollars, notice. It really helps invest in these tools and sort of give a lot of leverage to hundreds and hundreds of campaigns, not just for the cycle, but for every 1 to 2 years from now on, and can really sort of make lasting change. So that's our ask for money. It really helps. We are a political organization, so it is part of the rigmarole. But this is one of the highest leverage ways to give. So with that, we'll open it up for Q&A. You can use the chat feature or the structured Q&A email or Q&A feature on Zoom. So the first question from David White: do you have any insight into what gets communicated in the Trump emails? Yeah, it's mostly asks. It's mostly fundraising asks. You can subscribe. Not to give Trump free SMS subscribers, but you can subscribe. The number is not hard to find, and they will ask usually once a day. If you're in a swing state, like if you're in a state like California, where they're not really gonna win. Right now, it's about a daily fundraising ask, but they really do try different messages. They try different CTAs. It's sort of like, I don't know the right. It's insistent. There's an insistent tone that they operate in, and the Trump's A/B testing is yeah, that's what we kind of pick up inferentially from the high number of ads that they've created. And you can see it in the report. We've illustrated a couple of different motives that they have, but they pop up every like you'll have a horizontal view, a vertical view, a photo of Trump, a photo of Ivanka. Like they'll just try a bunch of different stuff. You can go to the Facebook political ad archive, take a look at the ads that they're running. You'll see it. Things essentially get repeated and repeated again in small and different ways.
And often just very, very slight differences.
Yeah, that's true. Mike Vatter asks about the TFC Slack. Mike, chat to you. Mike works with the Michigan Senate Democrats, so we can talk. It is for current volunteers, and really all the resources in there are focused mostly, except for the New Project channel, on supporting current volunteer projects. Alex, do you want to answer the question about the tech projects we worked on?
Sure. So we currently have 3 products that we're working on almost simultaneously. One is a really efficient way for campaigns to support their fundraising efforts. So it's software that allows them to do very quick donor research on all of the prospects that they need to contact, as well as actually contact them efficiently through the app. And then the second one is a product called Tabella, which we've shown in our prior All Hands, and we'll also show again probably in our next All Hands. Tune in for that. And that is basically a dashboard that allows caucuses to track field activity in the state. So field activity is things like canvassing door to door, canvassing via phone call and SMS. And that's really essential for caucuses to be able to track in a centralized way. And this dashboard allows them to do that. So we'll be releasing a bunch of new features on that product this summer sometime. So, in time for field activity to really ramp up in all of the states that we're working in. And then the third product is related to that, but is actually ad monitoring. So we're tracking all of the ad spend in all of the key states that we're working with, and allowing both our internal volunteer teams to access that dashboard so that they can quickly do sort of head-to-head matchups of ad spend for the candidates that they're working with as well as their opponent. And then we also offer that product to caucuses, and occasionally we're considering just directly to campaigns so that they can monitor ad spend as well. I think as Greg alluded to, there's a lot of information being published on presidential ad spend at a very high level, but almost no one talks about sort of state level ad spend, and definitely not sort of individual state house and state senate race ad spend. So that dashboard allows them to do that. So those are the 3 big things that we're working on that are sort of external. And then we also build our own internal tools to actually run the volunteer organization. So we have a tool called Recruiter that allows us to reach out to folks to match them with projects. really efficiently. So this is what Michael's team uses, and we'll continue to build on that as well.
Cool, thank you. Ansel?
Great. So Mike Lane asks, is there a list of which campaigns in each state are using TFC assistance? If you are curious to see which campaigns we are helping out at any given time, I would point you back to the weekly newsletter because we post projects there as they come through. So if you take a look back at the last couple of weeks, you will see all of the active projects. At the end of each year, we do also generally wrap up all of the great work teams were able to do looking back. And if you're interested in looking forward, I would check out techforcampaigns.org, our list of priority states, because that will give you all of the details about where we're planning to work this year.
Michael's following best practices, which is having a single call to action to funnel all you to, which is the weekly newsletter. Famous question, what things from TFC were most impactful for helping Democrats win? So the way that we generally we help folks with the core things that they need to do in order to communicate. So websites, if we build a website for somebody, it's replacing the need to go to a commercial vendor, often spend thousands of dollars and sometimes get a poor result. And that saves the campaign money while setting them up well to take donations, recruit volunteers, and sort of set up their brand in the right way. Digital advertising, we will help folks run the entire digital advertising program from strategy to making the ads, to running them, to monitoring all the numbers, both saving them money and hopefully bringing them best practices like, we sort of saw Brett present. And email, same thing, that replaces something that they would, often do with less sophistication, less time, and sort of cost them quite a bit. Texting, same thing. So attribution is always sort of a tricky thing in our business, but we're really confident that we're able to, not only save money, but also bring them increased effectiveness towards running through the things that they need to do to sort of run their campaigns well in the modern era.
David White asks, do I have to watch the Trump ads? And I will say no. One of the key roles of the team that wrote the 2019 Political Digital Ads Report is that they looked at all of them so that you don't have to.
There you go. But you can. It's instructive. Rocky's question about advice given to somebody interested in the field but lack experience. Volunteering is one way, both at TFC, although we typically do look for some experience in the field. But if you live near, an active campaign, they'll certainly put you to work in person as well.
Awesome. Justina asks if we are planning to primarily use volunteers who live in the same state as the campaigns. We work with volunteers all over the country. Obviously, for certain types of projects or certain roles, it is a plus if you either live in the state or just know the state. But not living in a state that TFC is working does not mean you won't get put on a project.
That sounds like a double negative.
That was a double negative. Apply.
Data science. So Scott asked, what kind of data science projects are planned? When we look at data science projects for campaigns, we're conscious of the fact that the vast majority of campaigns, for example, the few thousand people who are running for state legislative office, aren't generally in need of data science. We focus on the core mechanics of how they communicate with their constituents. Marketing skills are really what folks need when they're a small campaign running for state office. We do data science. So some of the kind of data science projects that we've done in the past are to look at voter data. So in Kentucky last year, we did a project that would model how voters would respond to state Democrats versus national Democrats, because there's sort of still an old tradition of the Southern Democratic Party that is, different when you're talking about the state house than when you're talking about Trump. We've also done postmortems with folks in Arizona looking at different field activity and other things. And we used data on email projects, on texting projects. We did data science in the ad projects, but really want to make sure that folks' efforts are going to the right spots and that they have sort of leverage on their time and it's ROI positive. So when we can find them, we do them, but it is sort of part of an overall mix that does include a lot of sort of more marketing heavy endeavors. Teddy's question about Twitter banning political ads, Google modifying the political ad policies to become less micro-targeted. Where do you see the future of digital advertising going? I actually see this if I kind of go back to the creative versus targeting slide, is that yes, they took away a bunch of tools on those platforms, and that is a thing, and it isn't a great thing really. I think it actually ends up hurting small campaigns because they essentially have to spend more money to get the same result. But it ultimately goes back down to messaging becomes I think with these changes in place, and there's sort of fewer shiny widgets to control, messaging becomes, again, the thing that can really rule the day in sort of effectuating a top quality digital advertising campaign. And I expect that that's where people are going to need to double down. Alex, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so Justina, that's a great question. Justina asks, given comments about reinventing the wheel, what drove our decision to make an in-house caucusing tool? Sounds like you've been using an app called Minivan. We definitely are not trying to rebuild that. So Minivan is a great tool for if you're out in the field and you're actually doing the caucusing on an individual campaign. The need that we saw was really for caucuses to centralize all that data. So caucuses need, a state Senate caucus, state House caucus, or even a state party, basically need to monitor all of the campaigns within a single state. So that's obviously different from a presidential campaign where there's only one, but at the state level, there are between 50 and 300 individual campaigns, and there's no way for that caucus or for that state party to actually monitor all those campaigns in a single place. What they have to do is either not monitor them at all because it's so time consuming, or they have to go into every single van instance where that canvassing data that you're collecting or similar canvassing data is stored, and then do a bunch of really time consuming manual work to get it out, and then aggregate it with all of the other campaign data one by one. And they have to do it again every single week. So there's really not any way for them to do that right now. And that's what the dashboard that we've built and are continuing to build upon solves.
Cool. Thank you. Lev's question about running surveys and polls. So typically in campaign world, folks try to specialize in different areas. So polling and surveying is sort of its own vertical. And there's certainly a lot of folks doing it the old-fashioned way with phones and landlines. But there are a couple interesting startups that have come out in the past couple of years, looking at ways to use surveys through online advertising, surveys through SMS and text messaging, and where we can kind of work together on that. That's a great opportunity. And campaigns essentially, campaigns and state parties and caucuses kind of make decisions on how they'd like to execute those, and we can give our advice and do. But and this kind of goes back to not reinventing the wheel. I think there's a couple of those startups are doing, new and interesting things, and where we can leverage that, we will.
Awesome. David asks about examples of websites that we've built. So for examples of websites, I would point you to our website, which has a section of campaigns who we've worked with and the stories of what their Tech for Campaigns teams were able to do for them. So I'd recommend go there and check those out, because you will find some great examples of work that we're proud of there.
So Michael's question about coordinating between projects, cross-selling, data sharing. So the answer is we do where we can, and it's not running afoul of any rules. So one of the things that we do, one of the core benefits of TSC is that we work across many campaigns, many more than a typical political organization or vendor, and we get to see the best practices that work. So Brett's graph about the ads doing worse over time, that's with the aggregation of a lot of individual campaign data to have that one insight that's valid in sort of the macro sense. We also coordinate between projects when they're for the same campaign. So oftentimes there'll be a website that TFC creates, an email program, and a digital advertising program. All those things need to work together, and we do make sure that they do work together. Same thing goes across the state, like sharing different message styles is great. There are rules in campaign finance law in different states and in the federal system to observe, make sure that we're not creating undue coordination, things like that, that we have to keep in mind. But when we can, especially in sort of an aggregated, anonymized fashion, we definitely do. Joe's question about third-party tools that Trump may be creating to iterate through ads at a high rate. That would be for them. There were a couple news stories discussing some Facebook marketing partners that they had used in the 2016 campaign, but I think generally in the industry, the first party, this is a very in the weeds answer, sorry everybody else. The sort of core tools that Facebook and Google make are pretty powerful, and for the vast majority of our campaigns do cover our needs. So that's kind of what I can contribute there. How we make money is through donations, Teddy. So that's the Tech Infrastructure Fund. That's a great segue to make one last pitch for the Tech Infrastructure Fund. We make money through donations. So the efforts of our donors, folks like yourself, contributing into the pot helps us employ our product and engineering folks and as well as ourselves. So it's a great way, high leverage use of donor dollars, and it's something that's obviously a big requirement for the organization and a big focus.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I think that is the vast majority of the questions that we have gotten. We really appreciate everybody choosing to join us and spend their Wednesday evening talking tech for campaigns. We are looking forward to working with many of you over the next few months as we help campaigns, and we hope that you will all be in touch.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.